Hey guys, this is a second part video to the video I did earlier this week about death. The reason why I wanted to come back and do a second video is because a lot of questions, a lot of comments that were given based off of the first video were how to grieve someone who's alive. And although I have spoken about that in therapy and about how to work through that, I think it's something different when people are going through it, and let's say like during this time frame you feel it 10 times more intensely than you would in any other time of your life, right? So the first thing that I kept getting messages about were how to grieve a friendship. Now I found it to be interesting that that was the main thing that people kept commenting and asking me to talk about. I think grieving a friendship is very difficult, especially if they're alive. Because I find that friendships are 10 times more emotional than, let's say, romantic relationships. Because I think with romantic relationships, you date with the possibility of knowing that one day this person may or may not be with you. And then you kind of have like almost like a coping strategy in place because you know that it may or may not work out, versus when you're in a friendship you think that this is kind of like forever, that you don't see the friendship being a period of time. Friendships are known to be something that is everlasting, ever loving, unconditional. And so it is very difficult when a friendship like that ends. So how do you grieve that? I find, right, that when we look at relationships, we have to look at it, what was their purpose during the time frame in which we had them, right? Because there's various points, right? The first one can be you and this person aren't on the same path growing wise, right? So this person may be stuck and needing to do more work in one area that you already did an exponential amount of work in, right? And so when you're growing in different phases of your life, not always will you want to meet in the middle. And that's okay, because every person has to go through their own growth. Every person has to deal with their own understanding and processing of any sort of emotion, any sort of time and phrase in their lives, right? So that's the first thing. The other thing could definitely be that you move on from this person. There are things that take more precedence in your life instead of that person, right? So for example, when you get into a new relationship, I'm not saying that that's okay, but we get swept up. That's the truth. We get caught up in getting to know this person and adjusting to this new lifestyle and this new life you're creating, right? Because essentially when you go in a relationship romantically, you're in some ways preparing and hoping that this person ends up being the end goal, right? Because that's the basis of, like, in the literal, I would say in the literal, like, I don't know why I can't come up with the word, but like, in the sense of like biologically speaking, that's what I meant to say. You you date someone with the hopes that you'll be with them forever. Um, and then so it's just again a different dynamic. And so when you're getting to know a person, you kind of sometimes involve yourself so much about that. I think it also comes back to balance, right? Because some relationships, some friendships ask so much of you and you aren't ready to give that, right? So keeping healthy boundaries, making sure that you let that person know how you're feeling, not being fearful of speaking up, understanding that your process and their process is very unique to your each person, you know, to yourself, to that person. I think that when it comes to grieving an ending of something, I think it's you taking a moment to look back at the relationship and see what worked and what didn't work. And if you look at it and you say, I really don't know what didn't work. I thought we were in a good space. Then my question for you is, were you really looking? Because clearly that person was not in a good space. Whether it was that they were dealing with some turmoil, emotional turmoil, or they were needing that space, but they weren't speaking up, right? And that's the scary thing about sometimes human beings. We can be really good at hiding our emotions. We can be really good at making sure that no one knows how we feel. And that's scary, that you can be so good at that and almost feel like you don't know a person. But I go back to this. It's always coming back to communication. It's always coming back to understanding what part you took in that friendship, and maybe the demise or the ending of the friendship, or maybe the flourishing of the friendship. I always say that we as people must take responsibility, not just for the good but also for the bad that we do, and honor that, own it. It's a part of being a human being. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be normal if you didn't own up your negativity. Like, I own that sometimes I can be very difficult when it comes to like a very high emotion. I don't want to talk. I don't really necessarily want to express myself, and I shut down. And I own that, and I know that. But I make it a habit to make my friends aware, like, look, this is what I'm going through at this time. I need the space to do this. So just let me figure out my emotions. Some people don't do that, and that's okay. But when they come back and when you can't have a conversation, I think that maybe allowing the space for you and that friendship to have that, right? So that's one. The other thing I suggest is also that understand that you can always find a friend that will always be there for you, in the best way that they can. Understand that we are all humans, that we are navigating through life, and we go through our own emotions, and as much as we want to be there for you, sometimes we can't. And that doesn't mean that they're a bad friend, and that doesn't mean that they don't love you, and it doesn't mean that they don't want to be there for you. But I think maybe asking yourself, what are your expectations of that person and of that relationship? Do you get what I'm saying? So I think it's always a process. I think it's always a coming together. I think it's always an understanding. And I think it's something that we constantly need to work on, and know that just because a relationship ends, it isn't always our fault. Sometimes there's something bigger at play. One thing that I came to realization yesterday was the importance of understanding that not everyone can meet the expectation you have. And that sometimes traumatic experiences in relationships can affect how you react to friendships going later on, right? So for example, for me, I realized that I don't really trust very easily. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm an open book. I thought I trust real easy. I don't. But I took realization to where that came from. By kind of analyzing my relationships and analyzing my friendships, and why I pick certain people, why I have certain dynamics with certain people. And then I realized, people are a deep reflection of who you are. If you don't feel like you're worthy, a person will deem you and act the same way. And that's the same thing as a romantic relationship. If you don't see yourself as worthy, you can't expect that person to see you as worthy. Do you get what I'm saying? So I think it's one of those things that again, it takes a lot of analyzing, a lot of realizing, and a lot of not feeling guilty like you didn't do enough. You did the best you could given the information that you had, and the rest was up to what choices people were going to make. We can't control people. We can't control the choices they make. All that we can do is focus on our reaction to that situation and what we can learn from that situation, okay? Love you guys. If you have any more comments, questions, suggestions on the next videos, let me know, okay? Bye.